Welcome to another Q&A. Let me know if you've got any questions. First one in from Jingo Jake. Feeling so ill from the drink these past few years, but my heart just races whenever I reach about 24 hours of sobriety. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, it's not glad to hear that you're ill, but the fact that you know what to do, you know how it's good for you, when you stop. It's a good thing. So we just done a video yesterday. I'm not sure if it's out today or tomorrow. Just on the topic of binge drinking and whether you can binge drink once a month and whether that's any good for you or whether it's going to cause you harm or whatever. And it's just one of those things. I'm learning a lot about energy lately, and our currency for ourselves, what you put out into the world, your own personal currency is energy, and it depends what you do with it. You eat food and you develop energy, and you output that energy in your actions and your thoughts and your behaviors and all the good things in life and all the bad things in life as well. So it really does depend on what you're putting out in terms of your output. There's no other way of saying it. I mean, when I was drinking, that's basically what I was spending my energy on, was thinking about alcohol. Not all the time, but it was a dominant part of my life, and there's always going to be risks to that, to your body, to your mind, to your way of life, to your future more than anything else, and your potential. And it's very easy to get stuck in a into a vicious cycle of doing the same thing over and over and over again. And especially when it's backed up by your community and the people around you. And when I'm talking about your community, I'm talking about the country you live in, the town you live in, your friends, your family. The closest people to you tend to be people that share those common things about yourself. So, hey, Iskander, how you doing? Angelo, greetings. So, when I was drinking, it was a weird, strange life, because a lot of the time you don't know you're doing it. So, feeling ill becomes a part of the whole life, from the day you start drinking. Yeah, I mean, your body just rejects the alcohol and rejects anything to do with it. I mean, think about the first time that your head's been around, or the first time you vomited, or the first time that you got up in the morning and just felt, what did I do last night? And these things, I think, get worse and worse as you move into the life of the drinker. So it's just a fact, isn't it? We don't have many questions today. Johnny Kohler says, we seem to forget that when we were kids, we went to parties, that we didn't need alcohol to have fun then. Yeah. I don't think it's a question of needing alcohol. I think it's more that it's like a natural progression in life, that it seems to be that when you're young, it's taken for granted that, when you turn 18, it's 18 in Ireland, the drinking age. I think it's 16 or 17 in certain parts of Europe to get a beer. And then you have to be older to drink other things. I know it's 21, 23 in some places in the States, but I think it seems to be that rite of passage into adulthood to go into a pub, and my dad bought me my first pint, and I was the proud buyer of my son's first pint as well. So it becomes a necessity, I think, of life before you've even taken your first drink. So the brainwashing is there already. So, but I get what you mean. It's we become dependent on alcohol for so many things in life, and the more that you drink, the more dependent you become. Everyone knows the stuff with having fun without alcohol, socializing without alcohol, celebrating with alcohol, commiserating with alcohol. So all of those things. Stephanie, why do some people get addicted and others don't? Drink and don't. I think it depends. Where addicted is one of those words that is so nefarious, right? It's just a total abstract concept. When we talk about smokers, for instance, there is never. It's assumed that everybody who smokes is addicted on one level or another. It's just an assumption that people make nowadays. I don't think that was always the case. I think, there's a heavy smoker, I suppose, when you get up towards the dark end of smoking. My dad used to smoke 60 cigarettes a day, but he sort of had them hanging out of his mouth, and he didn't really smoke them. They were just there as an accoutrement to his life. It was a habit for him, and chain smoker is another one that I remember people using, but it was for that end of things. But everyone on that scale is addicted to some, because I don't know. Otherwise, why would you do it? It just seems to be such a nonsensical thing to do, to stick a cigarette in your mouth, light it up and smoke it. It doesn't make any sense. And the more you think about it, and the more you understand that chaos that smoking causes, the more it just becomes more nonsensical. So with alcohol is a different thing, because the starting point of addiction is abnormal drinking. So normal drinking is not considered to be an addiction, but it is. I mean, if you drink once a week, you're dependent, which is another word for addiction. If you drink one drink a year and you drink it regularly on that date, and you have to drink it on that date, then it's a form of dependence, way down on the scale, but it's still there. So I think everybody gets addicted. It just depends on the level that they're addicted, if that makes any sense. Stephanie. Gergely says, how can I deal with clubs opening for unvaccinated after 2 years? How will I keep myself from going hard partying mode? By the way, are you vaccinated? Yeah, vaccinated. For as far as the clubs are concerned, I don't know. I don't go to pubs, so I used to be a big pub goer, and I stopped going to pubs. I think once we got the TV at home, when I stopped drinking alcohol, we'd go to the pub so I could watch football. But that was the only reason. As soon as it stopped, I got out of there. As a personal thing, I can't deal with drunken people anymore. Just from that, I don't like listening to my family drunk. I don't like. I don't have many friends who are drinkers, or if they are, they don't really drink around me because they know I don't drink, and it's not because they think that I'm going to have a problem with it. It's that they don't want to embarrass themselves, I think, or it's just boring for them if I'm around, because I don't drink anymore, and I'm looking at them and I remember everything the day after and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It's the thing is, if you get into the state where you don't give a shit about alcohol anymore, it doesn't matter where you go. It just doesn't affect you. I mean, I could go into a club now, a bar. There's no problem. I mean, we've gone into bars to eat, and there's no problem with that. I don't have a. It just doesn't. I don't get the same thing from alcohol anymore. I don't. It's not a thing for me. So, but if it's a thing for you, don't go. That's the problem is that a club or a pub is set up for drinking. It's set up to trigger drinking. These people have been doing this for years and they've got a playbook for it. So it's all set up to get you to not only drink, but to drink more and to stay there drinking. I mean, it's a pub, for instance, is created, that atmosphere in a pub is created to make you feel comfortable in more ways than one, not just the seating and the lighting and the music and the it's nice and comfortable atmosphere or temperature, but the bar staff are generally chosen because they're friendly. They know what they're doing, So, it's my advice is if you think it's going to be triggering, don't do it. Don't allow it to. That's one thing that's in your control. You always have to bring it down to that. What's in your control and what's not in your control. If something's not in your control, like going to a bar is totally in your control. But if something's not in your control, like you have to go to a bar because I've heard people saying, well, if I don't go to this meeting and it's a business meeting or a work meeting and they're holding it in a bar and I've got no choice to go there, then you control how you respond and you do everything you can before you get there to sort your head out in the right way. But yeah, definitely going to bars and clubs is off your own back is I hope that makes sense to you. I love the atmosphere in a bar now. When we go back to Ireland, a lot of the bars are the drink driving laws have changed now, and they've really cracked down on stuff. So a lot of people just don't want to drink anymore, and there's a lot more youngsters who are coming up, and they don't want to drink. They want to go out and they want to meet their friends, but they don't want to drink. They don't want to get hammered. So there are more and more bars that are catering for that. And then you've got I think there's been a huge investment from the alcohol companies into alcohol-free beers. So alcohol-free drinks in general. So although they don't keep people in the pubs as long, it's still, it's still nice. It is a nice atmosphere. Whenever we went into bars, yeah, it was a nice atmosphere. I used to work in the forestry, and it was my favorite time of the day was to come in from a cold, wet forest, and I either went home to a cold house, cooked my own food, or went into a bar, and somebody else cooked the food, and it was warm. And my mates were there, and I could have a few drinks and stuff and get drunk. And that was just the way my mind thought. Instead of changing the job or doing something to change the job, it was like, yeah, do the shitty job and then work out afterwards. There's no chance I would do anything like that now. The first thing I would think about was how do I change the shitty job, So, Johnny, what's your take on alcohol in food? Generally, it's fine when cooked at a high temperature. Yeah, I mean, look, there's alcohol in. I don't. If somebody says to me there's alcohol in this food and you can't eat it, it's like, well, the only reason I stopped drinking alcohol was because I didn't want to get drunk anymore. I didn't want to put the poison inside my body anymore. Period. Your body can handle small amounts of alcohol. I mean, if you drink an alcohol-free beer, there's 0.5%. I mean, there's 1.5% in burger buns. So there's a 1.5% alcohol by volume in burger buns. In bread, I mean, you can smell it as the bread it's the same thing. You've got the same ingredients, flour, and there's a grain, there's yeast, and there's the blend of that. It's just not done over the period. But think about how many beers it would take. Think about how many beef stroganoffs it would take to get drunk. It just doesn't. You don't need to think on that level. I mean, your body produces a certain amount of alcohol just in the digestion process, a minute amount of alcohol. I mean, there's a thing called Otto Brewer syndrome, where certain people get drunk on that their body produces a lot of alcohol, not massive amounts, but they can put themselves apparently over the legal limit. So thankfully we don't have that. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about alcohol in food. I don't put it into my own food. If I'm cooking stuff, I wouldn't put alcohol into it. It's just not my thing. I think I never really did that anyway. So I don't know. Lifestyle changes. I let go of many big drunker friends. Yeah, dealing with loneliness was an issue. Not so much now. Any suggestions for those feeling sad and alone? Yeah, it's. I think you're in a better position when, as a non-drinker. Definitely, it's a tough time these days for loneliness, I think, and feeling alone. This. I was watching a program earlier on. They were talking about the amount of office space that is just not being used anymore. And we've definitely at the beginning of the pandemic, I thought, this is something that really can bring people together. And in one way, it separated people more than ever. It just separated people on political lines. And I just heard some really pathetic arguments on both sides. But from another perspective, it's people are starting to rethink what they're doing in their lives, and whether or not the hour or two commute to work in the morning and then the same coming back at night is worth it. If you can work at home, if you can stay with your family, all those things. So I'm not answering the question, feeling sad and alone. There's a lot of ways that you can meet people online, but I think it's not the same as meeting people in person. But I'll tell you one thing: when I was drinking and I was going out and in the pubs, when you're in there and you're in the moment and you're drinking and you're talking over the same shite, it doesn't seem like you're sad or alone. But I often felt the most sad and alone afterwards when I went home, and the drink was wearing off, and you're just left with your own thoughts. Then that's not a great place to be. So I think for wherever you're going to move on from here, it's a better place to be, to have your mind free of this stuff, to have your personality free of it, to have your to have that potential opening up. One of the things that I try and teach as much as I can is to have a broad scope in what you're pursuing after you stop drinking alcohol. So we go across 12 different categories. I'm trying to narrow those down into, but generally we're looking at social things, your family, your friends, looking at your hobbies and your career and your money and spirituality. So there's 12 of these things that we try and look at, and you need to really have a look at try and, you're never going to get a balance in all of them, but you can try and build a balance. And I think the more balanced you can get across that, across all of the aspects of your life, the less lonely you are, because the more people that you attract into yourself that are, I suppose, they're more in line with your values and your principles. Whereas, before, for me, I didn't know what my values and principles were. Do you know what I mean? I'd walk into a bar and that was my values, was who's there that I could talk to, there were some dicks that I wouldn't talk to, it was just, I didn't want to talk to. But if they were the only person there and you sat at the bar, it's a weird life. So sorry I didn't answer your question great there, but hey. Hey Damien, how are you doing? How long does it take for the liver to recover from alcohol? It depends. It depends on how much damage is caused. And that's the short answer. There's certain parts of liver cirrhosis that your body won't recover from. Once your liver gets into a certain scarring stage, then it can't can't get past that, or they haven't got the ability to do that yet. I mean, maybe in the future, bar getting a liver transplant. But I think below that, I think once, if your liver is not scared, if you get into the fatty liver, the alcoholic fatty liver, or the what do they call it now, the hepatitis level, I think your liver can recover from that. And it depends on who you are. It depends on your age. It depends on other factors like what are you eating. Like I said before, it's a balance that you've got to have in your life. You've got to look at things like your nutrition, how much water you're drinking, all the other crap that you're putting into your body. If try and remove as much of that as you possibly can. Also depends on where you live. If you're living in an area with a lot of smog, for instance, or just general contamination, that's going to affect your liver, because your liver is there primarily for as a filter. So I hope that answers that. 46th birthday. Hey Chris, last night was my first after quitting drinking. My friends held me to the floor. Yeah, well, I mean, that's what can you do about that? There's just dickheads. I mean, to be honest with you, they're not the type of friends that you should have. You should seriously consider those friendships. Like I said, there's nobody that can put this alcohol into your mouth except you, or dickheads like that are going to hold you down. I mean, what the fuck, I'm sorry to hear that, man. But as I said, seriously consider whether they're your friends. It's kind of the prices for alcohol-free spirits alternatives are ridiculous. Another rip-off from the alcohol companies. Yeah, it is, but it's supply and demand. I think there's more people that want to drink the alcoholic versions of it, the poison versions, than the other ones. Where I'm living, lucky enough, I don't see the prices of I don't see the price of alcohol anyway. I'm not looking at the price of alcohol. So that's another factor that I always look into is when I was drinking alcohol, I could easily drink 10 pints in an evening. That would be my sort of average 6 to 10 pints. So that would cost me in Ireland at the time probably 30 to 50 euros. There was no chance I could drink that, if I was drinking alcohol-free beers. No chance. Two or three at the most, and that would be done. So if you weigh it up like that, it's cheaper. Great work, helping me a lot. Just 20 days in now, working on it. Well done. First 20 days, what do you think are the most important ways to avoid subconscious triggers that end up in a craving cycle? What do you mean by subconscious triggers? What kind of things are you thinking about? I mean, a lot of the stuff that's happening in the beginning, everyone's got an idea about the big triggers that are going to happen. Walking into a bar, try and keep that to a minimum. Don't go into a bar if you can help it. Keep the alcohol out of your house if you can manage it. If you can't, try and get a room that is alcohol free. And it's going to be tough in the beginning. The triggers are all around you, but there's certain deep psychological triggers that I don't know. Everyone has a different thing. All right, guys, I'm gonna close it up for today. We'll be back tomorrow, I think, probably around the same time if you want to join us. Probably around the same time, yeah. So listen, thanks a million for your questions today. I hope we got through all of them. We sort of lost a bit of the feed there a while ago, but anyway, take care of yourself, and I'll speak to you again soon. Onwards and upwards. Bye now.